Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Pradeep from Armwrestling Newz, and today I have a very special guest, the biggest star in arm wrestling. People call him the greatest arm wrestler of all time, probably the smartest arm wrestler of all time as well, and very humble to be willing to accept my invite to join this interview. How are you doing, sir? Mr. John Brzenk.
Great. Good morning.
Yeah.
So, well, it's not morning there, but it's morning here.
Yeah, for me it is about 9 p.m. 9 p.m. Perfect time for an interview. So you have mentioned quite a few times about how you started your journey in arm wrestling with your father. I think it was somewhere when you were around 10, 12 years old, maybe 11, 12 years old.
11,
And
12 years old. Yeah. Mid school, mid grade school.
yeah, before that, were you interested in any other sports? Like you were always the competitive kid? Like I can beat you in a 100-meter sprint, I can beat you in wrestling, I can beat you in arm wrestling. Were you like that with your siblings?
Yeah. As a small kid, I was, if not the fastest, one of the fastest kids always as far as running goes. Sports, um, early childhood, I played baseball and then played pee wee football. So baseball and football, pretty much the sports of the time when I was younger. Uh, but yeah, no, I always had that imagination that I was going to be super strong, that I was going to be Superman. And my mom would tell me that I would, at 4 or 5 years old, I'd throw on the towel around my neck and jump around the house from couch to couch, pretending I was Gigantor or Superman. So
Yeah. So when your father was taking you to these arm wrestling events in the bars, was he expecting some kind of a dominance from you, or did he ever tell you that one day you will have to become the greatest arm wrestler, or I want you to dominate the arm wrestling scene? Did you ever have these kind of talks with your father?
no, no, he never thought. In fact, I'll backtrack the full story. When I started arm wrestling 11, 12, I broke my arm at 13. Um, my dad was involved in the sport and at the initial stages, and that's how I kind of dabbled into it. Then I moved away from my dad. My mom and dad were split, so I moved to Utah for 3 or 4 years, and didn't return to the sport until I was 16, 17. Um, and that's when my progress really started to accelerate quite quickly. But yeah, no, when I was going to bars with him, I was after, when I was in my late teens. And I mean, no, he didn't have any idea. I mean, I just, I progressed so quickly at, those younger years like that. That was just one thing led to another. And we started going to bigger and better tournaments because he was excited to go to tournaments too. So he, obviously I would tag along because I was involved in it just as much as he was. And I would learn from the guys and, it just, it went from there. But he had
Great.
no idea. I guess, I mean, it became obvious after a couple of years. Once I turned 17, 18, I was beating top level guys. And, so it was pretty easy to see that, that's keep going to bigger and better tournaments until.
Yeah. So, at what age did you join your current job in the airlines? Because there are some rumors that John Brzenk got senior because he was an airline mechanic, which you have already clarified is not true. Your work was never physical; it was never manual labor kind of work. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. An airline position isn't a physical job by any means, but I did have some, out of high school, I dabbled as a carpenter for a while and a machinist and did little odds and ends things. But then I ended up moving back to Utah, probably I guess 19 years old, maybe late 18, 19, and started going to school, become an A&P, and got hired on with Western Airlines at 20 years old. So pretty early in my life, but yeah, no.
so
It,
is it true that you joined the airlines because you could travel easily to the events, or was it just coincidence?
it definitely was. It was definitely a consideration. I really didn't know
Okay.
what I wanted to do with my life out of high school, and the little jobs that I were doing weren't really working out that well. I mean, it was a lot of hard work and not a lot of pay, and I was very successful already at the sport of arm wrestling, and I knew that traveling was a big expense. So, and it helped that I had a really good friend in high school that was interested in the airline industry. His dad was a pilot, so he kind of talked to me about the A&P program and becoming an airline mechanic, and that's kind of the course I took from that. But yeah, arm wrestling had a lot to do with that career choice, obviously.
Yeah. And I'd like to request our viewers one thing, that this is going to be a long interview. The format of this interview is 30 questions with John Brzenk. So we are probably going to go for 1 hour. We have already asked only 2 questions so far. So please subscribe to the channel, and few clips will be on John's channel as well, if he allows me to send him some clips for his channel. So do check out for that as well. So John, I'd like to ask you about some of the worst injuries in your career. Like you have mentioned 2 injuries or maybe 3 injuries in your career. First one was when you broke your elbow as a kid, and second one was your shoulder injury when you were throwing a softball. So when exactly these 2 injuries happened?
The elbow was when I was 13, which many kids now since then have had the same injury. It seems to be the critical age where there's shifting in the bones or what have you. But yeah, no, arm wrestling a buddy of my dad's when I was 13 years old. Not being out of position or anything. It was just basically the strain of the forearm pulling that elbow connection. Just basically cracked away. It wasn't a complete break. It didn't require any hardware. They just put me in a cast for 6 weeks, and that was about the time when I decided to. Well, I kind of stopped arm wrestling, and then moved to Utah. So it was kind of good timing as far as getting a lot of rest after that injury. But then when I came back to Illinois, yeah, I was probably, I'm going to guess 22, 20. It was after the Over the Top tournament. So I was probably 22, 23 when that shoulder injury occurred throwing a softball, and basically tore my labrum, out of my arm, and never had it looked at, never had it fixed, just suffered with it for almost close to a year and a half. It was very difficult to arm wrestle at the level that I was previous to that. And I lived with it until I was in my early 40s. And when then I finally decided to have it looked at, and they did surgery, and they cleared all the scar tissue out. And then it took 6 anchors to resecure the labrum back in my right arm. So yeah, those were the 2 major injuries. I've had, problems during my period when I was thinking about retiring. When the Pulling John crew was around, I was having issues with my inner elbow, just tendonitis, chronic tendonitis. It just would not seem to go away, and I was getting to the point where it's getting very frustrating. And I just decided, okay, it's enough. I'm done with arm wrestling. But they kind of pushed me through it and said, no, this is important. Let's, yeah, as luck would have it, a year or 2 being forced into it again and wanting to do it, I ended up healing up from it and feeling fine from it. So, yeah. And that's been about really the only 2 injuries. I mean, I still struggle with the shoulder pain. I've had it looked at a bunch of times. They do x-rays, and they basically just say I've got a ton of arthritis, so degenerative arthritis, basically. So they won't even consider doing an MRI. They just say, oh, you got 80-year-old shoulders. So, yeah. But I've been struggling with that, and it seemed to have calmed down a little bit. But as I'm getting stronger and stronger, and my hand is holding up, and I'm applying more side pressure, it's definitely aggravating it, and it's making it difficult once again to try to figure out how to negotiate that and still compete and get strong.
I've talked with some guys who had this similar shoulder surgery, because I also had a shoulder surgery, same torn labrum. My shoulder was dislocated probably 10-12 times in last 5-6 years before the surgery, and 3 anchors to fix the shoulder. It was better before the surgery. Like, I still regret it having, and this is the common thing with shoulder surgery with many people. I've heard you also say the same thing, that the shoulder was better before the surgery.
Right. Well, and simply because of the fact that the scar tissue was probably way more supportive than them going out and clearing all that out and then trying to re-anchor it and treat. I mean, I've talked to shoulder experts after I got the surgery, and they said, "Oh yeah, no, it wasn't any better, was it? I mean, you should have just left it alone." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I wish I would have talked to you before I got this guy to go through with it." But your mindset is you're hurting and you want to try to you're hopeful that something will fix it. But I regret it.
Yeah, the thing with these shoulder surgeries is that it prevents further injury. It prevents further major damage to the shoulder. But before the surgery, it never hurts unless you suddenly pulled something or it got hurt. But after the surgery, it almost hurts every time, even when you sleep, when you wake up. It hurts every time just for the sake of kind of preventing. And that pain kind of makes you extra cautious that you don't put your shoulder in that situation once again.
Right. No, before the surgery, it hurt and was inflamed, but it was very stable. After the surgery, now it pops and cracks and feels like it's going to dislocate. It's become very unstable. So yeah, no, it was better before I messed with it.
And you already partially answered my next question. I was about to ask you how many times in your career you have thought about quitting arm wrestling. You mentioned one time when they convinced you to do the Pulling John movie. When were the other times where you thought about just I've done enough. I've done everything. I do not need to achieve
I mean,
anything more.
I thought about it this morning. I think about it 1,000 times, probably in the last year. You know, I'm off and on, off and on. I'm like, why am I continuing to do it? I mean, there's plenty of reasons why I continue to do it. It's enjoyable. It's my life. It's the community and the people, and I'm still competitive. So when I leave it for a little while, I go, it kind of draws me back. But then again, there's other times I think to myself, I should be focusing on maybe something else in my life now. I've been there, done that so long that I need to move on and do something else. But it always drives me back. I mean, it's been so important in my life. And but yeah, no, I think about it all the time. I'm constantly questioning myself, like, well, why am I still doing this? This is silly. I'm an old man. I shouldn't be arm wrestling these monsters. But what it's going to take is a good, and hopefully this doesn't happen anytime soon. But the big concern is my getting injured. So that's probably what's going to finally slap me in the face and say, okay, you're done, dummy. Don't be doing that anymore. You're after I get hurt, which that's sorry to
John, your comeback in arm wrestling was one of the best thing for us fans of the sport, because when you watch someone compete live, it gives you a different feeling. I'm quite sure, like I'm assuming you watched Muhammad Ali box when you were a kid. You witnessed that moment. We can also watch all of those matches on YouTube, but that will never give us the feeling that you may have gotten when you watched that match, because at that time you kind of associate yourself with that story. You grow up into those matches if you're a big fan of any sport. So what was lacking before you made a comeback in 2021 was that we can watch your matches. You were beating many top guys like Tavberidze and other top guys, Devon Larratt in 2003 and 15. But we were not into the arm wrestling scene back then. So it was really hard for us to get emotionally involved in those matches. But since you have come back now, that heartbeat, that we get to feel that moment when you are arm wrestling as a fan of your arm wrestling. So this is I think we should all appreciate a lot that you have made a comeback. I'm not sure if you realize that or not, but you have made the entire community so much happy. I'm not sure if the arm wrestling community has accepted any arm wrestling comeback such a grateful level as yours. Maybe
Yeah, and I
somewhere.
appreciate that, and it probably has a lot to do with why I have such a difficult time to ever, or I will have a difficult time to ever really ever walk away from it. Because it is people do embrace it and accept me, and so yeah, it'll definitely be hard to completely walk away from the community. So I'll always be involved in arm wrestling in some fashion.
Yeah.
For sure.
Can you quickly give us a recap of your life within arm wrestling between the day when you beat Devon Larratt in 2015 and the day you made your comeback again in 2021 against Chanshaw? Like we saw you compete at the Moldova event. Before that, I think we saw you against Yoshinobu Kanai as well, and few other matches. Asia China Cup. You were at China Cup. Do you remember everything you did in those 5-6 years?
I really forced myself to stay away from arm wrestling completely. Sold all my workout equipment, or basically gave up all my workout equipment away. Didn't have a table anymore, so I didn't do any arm wrestling. And the only occasional arm wrestling I would do would be a favor for a friend saying, hey, or the situation like Moldova, like, hey, there's a bunch of money and they're, all they wanted you to be is to show up. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can be bought. And, it was still a fun event. Right. But I was not in any condition, in thinking that I was going to be competitive. The Yoshi match, I think that was kind of similar. Just an old friend said, let's do a super match, and I was like, yeah, okay, let's just do it. But yeah, no, I stayed pretty much. I was not involved in the sport at all for that 5-6 year period after my match with Devon in Vegas. So
yeah. We saw you have a friendly match with Travis as well in Moldova and one other event. How did Travis convince you to do that?
Well, just Travis and I are just so old buddies, and so if he's asking me to do something, I normally we normally try to accommodate that. And he came out to Arizona for that friendly match to run an event here, local, only 20 minutes from my house, and he was boasting about giving away $10,000 or something to anybody that could beat him. And of course, we were all partying, having drinks, and I had a few beers in me, and my wife was like, "Oh, you should go ahead, at least go try, go see what." Like, you're right, and I thought, okay, I was feeling good enough, like, okay, yeah, that might be fun. Maybe see if I can still got it, or at least be able to give him a little bit of match difficulty. But yeah, no, that was just kind of spur of the moment thing where he was boasting anybody can beat me. They're going to get, which was, total bullshit. He wasn't going to give $10,000 away to anybody that beat him. Even if I did beat him, it would have been, impossible to get any money out of him. But so that's how that went down.
Yeah, this is another great quality about you, because I always try to think from the minds of these elite level arm wrestlers, like how would they approach the end of their career. Like, there could be two options in front of many legends who were at the top in their peak age: either go down, like retire at the top, or some athletes choose to compete as long as they are feeling happy about it and as long as they can compete. And some of them are, no, there is a possibility that I will not be at the top once again, so I need to stop arm wrestling or stop any sport. But you clearly find for yourself in the other category, where you just like to compete as long as you can.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what their mindset is, if they just feel like it's going to diminish their legacy to not compete at that perceived super high level. But I'm over that. I know that I'm not the same guy I was 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. So I'm pretty much at peace with the fact that I am who I am, and I'll continue to do it as long as I enjoy it, and I can keep myself from getting too badly hurt. And but for me, the difficult thing is when it stops becoming enjoyable, when I really have to work at doing everything I can to just fight through the uncomfortable little aches and pains that I'm dealing with, not so much at tournament time, but just training. It's like, oh, why, the next week comes up around and I'm like, oh man, I'm still sore from the previous week and I'm hurting all week. And it's like, those are the things that kind of play with my psyche, that I think, oh, it's not working out. It's not fun anymore. But and I'll probably progress to the point where, like I had for a while there at the end before I retired, that, just almost not working out anymore and just still enjoying competing every once in a while when people ask. So
and now you have created a great facility for all of the arm wrestlers and arm wrestling fans. When they talk about arm wrestling, they always show that, like, this is a 58-year-old guy and he's still beating everyone, so you can continue till that age. Arm wrestling titles, like whenever somebody puts you in a video, 58-year-old man destroys world champion Zoloev.
Right.
Yeah, great facility for us YouTubers.
Yeah, no, the framework is still there. All the structure, the tendons, everything is still there, and that's really the great thing about the sport. It's definitely long lasting once you've built that base, that frame. As you get older, though, it's not really about getting any stronger. It's just dealing with the mechanisms that shut your brain off of the little aches and pains. So yeah.
And I brought this point up. Yeah, please go ahead.
It's definitely a long-term sport, obviously, that people can do if they can manage the injuries and the aches and pains as I get older. It's the structure and that framework, like I said, is long lasting for sure.
Yeah. Your legacy is unmatched. There is nothing in this world that could possibly happen to diminish your legacy. But I brought this point up because it can sometimes hurt some of the athletes, like Cobra Rhodes, for example. I heard he was very dominant in his prime, but there aren't enough videos of that. There isn't enough video proof. We know it happened, but we haven't seen it actually. And the new matches where Cobra has been competing, he's losing. So the volume when he was winning, that was probably watched by 10,000 people, and where he's losing, that is watched by 100,000, 200,000 people. So this is why we get many comments like, we have never seen Cobra Rhodes win. And it
Right.
kind of hurts Cobra. I've seen that on his face. Like whenever this topic is brought up, like, why aren't there any videos of you winning? So
Right.
of course, it
Yeah.
won't affect you, but it can affect some arm wrestlers. For them, maybe if they care about it, maybe a better option could be to retire at top. I just keep imagining these scenarios in
Right.
my mind all day.
Right. But here again, if as long as he can find enjoyment in doing it, then why not continue to do it? I mean, he's still effective and competitive, maybe not at the level he was obviously 15, 20 years ago, but who is? So
Yeah.
you just have to come to terms with that.
Yeah. So this time your comeback looks different. Or maybe I'm just saying that because this is the only comeback that I've seen you made in arm wrestling at high level. Of course, you have always been at high level. So what was the motivation factor this time? Like, why did you make a comeback in 2021? And you're going probably harder at it than you have done in last one decade.
Well, once I commit to something, it's full steam ahead. So I mean, and what prompted me, I mean, I've told the story a few times now, is really as simple as just Chance Shaw calling me out and calling me out a couple, three times. And the situation was I was being asked by Travis to come out to one of his tournaments and just kind of be a special guest. And I thought, okay, well, this is a good time to maybe, try to have that match with me. And I had been arm wrestling leading up to knowing that I was going to go to this thing. I started training a little bit, a couple, 3 months, and I kind of accepted Chance's challenge. And from that point on, I just continued to look ahead, forward, kept arm wrestling, and just decided, hey, I'm doing this now. And I was able to be, squeak by and beat Chance and be competitive still at the what seemed to be a pretty high level. Chance was beating some pretty formidable guys, and I thought, no, shoot, I can still do this. And here I am, a year and a half, 2 years later. So
Yeah. And this is the most fabulous thing about social media world, that you have obviously worked your entire life in arm wrestling for probably very little pay most of the times. And now you are also saying that sometimes people recognize you, they want to take a picture with you. So I believe that social media will now be giving legends like you the respect and recognition throughout the world that you have always deserved. But because arm wrestling was so small till, I would say, maybe 3 years ago, pre-pandemic, it was a very small sport. The most of the growth that we have seen was after 2020. So have you felt any change, like in the growth of the sport? Like, in what do you have to say
oh
about the direction in which
yeah,
arm wrestling is
yeah,
going?
yeah, of course, yeah. No, it always shocks me and surprises me that occasionally people will just recognize me away from arm wrestling tournaments. I mean, obviously, you're going to meet hundreds of people when you're at tournaments, but yeah, it always shocks me that I just and I could, before they even introduce themselves or say anything, I could see that they recognize me, and I always think it's hilarious. How do you recognize somebody that's so obscure as like an arm wrestler? I mean, but yeah, do I enjoy it? Yeah, I get a kick out of it. I smile, and I think it's pretty crazy that, because 15, 20 years ago that would absolutely never, ever, ever happen. I mean, but I'm a pretty quiet, private guy that doesn't really, I kind of shy away from that. So I almost do this when I notice that they recognize me. I'm like, I run away from it. So, but yeah, no, I get it. I smile when it happens. So I definitely know that the exposure has definitely been out there because of whatever,
Yeah.
Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever it is.
Yeah, I was the other day I was interviewing Matt Mask, and I brought this topic up that you did a live stream with Devon. You and Devon were just sitting in front of the camera and like almost 100,000 views. You talk about Denis Cyplenkov for 8 minutes, 250,000 views. So this is a great sign that the arm wrestling sport has grown enough, because I'm not sure if many of the top bodybuilders as well, if two of them would just sit together and do a live stream, I'm not sure it is going to get 100,000 views. So arm wrestling is already at a very high level. One thing that I always wish that arm wrestlers try to educate themselves more about how to monetize these views, because any big YouTuber is going to tell you if there are 100,000 people willing to listen to you, you can easily monetize that and
Mm-hmm.
easily make probably $10,000 a month. That is
Mm-hmm.
possible. So this is
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I think arm wrestlers, and talking about monetizing, like, why aren't you more active on your YouTube? Like, are you not interested or don't get enough time?
I just feel like I don't have a lot of it's out of my personality uh, wheelhouse, and I just feel like I don't have any quality content, so I kind of shy away from it when I go through the week and I really haven't been keeping up with what's been going on in the sport, and I don't really have anything to say or think that I have to say, that it's really difficult for me to log in and just to do it. I mean, I just feel like I have nothing to offer, no content. um yeah, obviously if I had somebody pushing me and saying, oh no, this people would be interested in this, or we should do this, or you know and I'm all for that. I would be game to do it, but for me to do it on my own, it's just not in my personality, and it's not a trait that I have to be able to think, oh, this would be kind of cool. Somebody probably would like to see this. I'm more of the guy that says, yeah, who's gonna care about this? No one's gonna care about this. Why would I? I'm not gonna post anything like that, because who cares? But
Yeah.
so that's it's
Yeah.
not that I'm completely. I am lazy, but it's more that's just my feeling, like it's not worthwhile. Nobody would care about it.
Yeah, whenever you have that doubt, just watch at the thumbs up and thumbs down ratio of your videos. I'm quite sure it is above 99%. So that should clearly tell you that people like the content that you are uploading. And you don't have to come up with something creative. Just telling your story and answering the questions, Monday Night Lives are perfect. I think
Yeah.
90% of the arm wrestling community got to know more about John Brzenk from those 15, 20, however many you have done those Monday Night Lives. I think we got to know a ton about you, especially the new generation. Like, there is
Okay.
only a limited amount of knowledge that you can gain about an arm wrestler watching their older videos. But you telling those stories like in person in front of the camera, that can give us a great deal of knowledge about what you did in the sport. So I think it was amazing. Which takes me to my next question. I never heard about this story until you mentioned it on your live stream. You only won one WAF gold medal on the left arm, and you told an interesting story behind that. Why did you went there for competing? Can you
I
please tell
think
us
it
that?
was. I think it was the following year after I competed in the Gold Bear in Russia, where they had a Thursday tournament, a Friday tournament, and then they had the money event at a casino on Saturday. And most of the top arm wrestlers there did not compete on Thursday and Friday, and competed for the money on Saturday. And I fell short. I ended up getting beat by. I had a hard match with a guy named Arekli. I can't remember pronounce his last name, Gerchini or something like that, from Georgia. And then I ended up pulling Alan Karev in the finals and getting beat. And so I kind of walked away from that, learning my lesson. Like, I'm never going to let that happen again. I'm never going to be in a disadvantage because I pulled a couple days, Thursday and Friday, before I had big matches with these guys for substantial amount of money. So that following year, when they had an overall in Japan after the WAF World Championships for some cash, I was on the mindset like, well, I'm not going to pull. To qualify, you had to
Yeah.
pull in the WAF event, but I wasn't going to qualify. I wasn't going to pull right-handed because the money, the overall, was going to be right-handed. So I entered left-handed, and I ended up actually winning a WAF title left-handed. But the only reason I really had gone to Japan to compete was that I knew that there was going to be an overall super match away from the WAF championships
Yeah.
and basically an overall winner was going to receive
So you just went there because you had to qualify to to go to the event that you wanted to go, the money
qualify
event.
for cash
Yeah.
prize, right?
And this
Which I did.
shows, yeah, this shows your level because what your left is probably 30% weaker than your right, at least 20%.
Yeah, my left was never been that good. And it's not that I haven't tried to. Yeah, I hadn't spent a lot of time training my left, and it would occasionally get strong, and then I would injure it. It was just very fragile. It was very temperamental. Yeah, my left's never been what my right has been. Whether or not it's just because my right got injured at a young age, or that I had arm wrestled just a ton, focused completely on my right through my teens and early part of the career, that the left just never would seem to respond and catch up to the right. So, but yeah, that year I actually beat, I think, Ron Bath and Devon
Devon,
Larratt.
yeah.
That,
I remember that photo. Ron was second and Devon was third. And you,
yeah.
with your party, I'm won the
Yeah.
WAF gold medal. Amazing. So you have been the most discussed arm wrestler when it comes to arm wrestling training. Probably Devon and you, because every time when arm wrestlers want to make a point that you don't really need to go hit the gym to get strong in arm wrestling, you just need maximum possible table time. Every time your name comes up, so I'd like to know that you mentioned sometimes that you tried to do some gym stuff, bench press, you almost got to a 400-pound bench, but you didn't really see any difference on the table. For how much time, for how many months did you follow that new training protocol?
That particular time in the past was probably maybe a year, less than a year. Another time is before I pulled Devon in Vegas. I had been training with a guy doing the full lifts, and you could tell just in my shoulders and my chest, I was, along with that weightlifting comes extra weight, and that's the part that's hard to decide whether or not it's worth it or not, because obviously being stronger, even if it's not directly associated with table strength, is going to make you a little bit stronger and better condition. And I mean, why not? I mean, it's not going to hurt you, other than the fact that it's going to make you heavier. But yeah, I've always contended that it's just so hard to simulate the type of strength that's required and stimulate the tendons and ligaments in the brain and all the mechanisms that make an arm wrestler great by doing anything other than arm wrestling. To be doing weightlifting is, it's definitely probably helpful in the healing aspect, maybe, but we've seen over and over so many people that are strong men that could crush what great arm wrestlers could do in the gym, lift 3, 4, 5 times as much and not be effective on the table. So my feeling is that it doesn't translate very well. But.
Yeah. And I'd like to know your take about one topic that whenever I think about this, it kind of bothers me a lot, about the level of arm wrestling training, the education we have around that topic. Because if you go to a sprinter, like a coach who teaches sprinting, he's for sure going to tell you some high knees with a barbell on your shoulders. If you go to a powerlifting coach, he is for sure going to tell you to do some good morning exercises. You cannot get away without those. But when you go to an arm wrestler, they always reply with, well, you just need to figure it out yourself, what works for you, how much table time you need to do, how much gym exercises you need to do. So why isn't there a specific, like a fixed training protocol that you need to follow, the basic exercises that everyone should do or needs to do, just like the other sports? Do you think the arm wrestling training is underdeveloped, like there hasn't been much study about it, like what works or what
Yeah,
or
I
doesn't
think
work?
everybody's just still trying to figure it out. I mean, and the fact that everybody's probably a little different and responds differently, that there is just not going to be one right way. I mean, you have to figure out what works for you. I mean, and what what progresses you. I just feel like there's just not one book that can be written, and this is the right way for everybody. I think everybody's just a little bit different. What works for a body type like mine, a sprinter, is going to be different than someone that's more of a marathon guy like Devon. So I just feel like everybody has to kind of find their own way, and arm wrestling has to get to the point where it's almost, you don't have to think about it. That's why I always laugh when, oh, what should I do? What should I do? Well, you gotta just do it 10,000 times and just have it automatically happen. Your body just has to automatically respond. It's not something that I can tell you and you can put in your notebook and then you can, be thinking about. If you're thinking about doing this, that, the other, you're not arm wrestling effectively, quickly enough. You're not responding quickly enough. Or so that's why I've always preached just repetition. Don't get your mind cluttered with all this. What should I do have done here? What should I have done there? What's the right way? What's the wrong way? Well, there is no right or wrong way. Everybody's a little different. The guy that you're across the table from is going to be completely different from the next guy that comes to the table. So, so that's where there's just no substitute for experience.
So, John, about 10 years ago, you mentioned that you miss that nervousness before the competition, that adrenaline rush that you used to have. It kind of helped you to give a better performance. So, fast forward 10 years, has it gotten worse, or do you get that nervousness again while competing?
No, I don't get the adrenaline rush I think nervous or worrying about or overthinking something, it might be a little different than what you feel in the early stages when you're younger. That might be really true adrenaline. Now it becomes, it almost can be a fatigue factor if you're, trying to overthink and worrying about a match. That's typically what I end up doing now as I've gotten older. But I don't know I don't know if you can teach your body to turn on that adrenaline thing. But definitely it's an advantage to have that, or to have your body do that. I thought about some of the times that I've really been effective as an arm wrestler, is when I allowed myself to get kind of basically fueled up with excitement and that adrenaline away from arm wrestling, because arm wrestling wouldn't do it for me. Like there would be tournaments in Las Vegas and that, and if I played in like a poker tournament before leading up to my arm wrestling event, I'd be so like just revved up, because that hours of playing poker was really stimulating my body to really be fueled with adrenaline, just being excited and nervous about that game first, and then I could bring it across and actually be more effective as an arm wrestler because of that. So yeah, obviously everybody can figure out what turns that system on. If they can figure it out and tap into it, it's definitely would be a plus.
Yeah. And you were able to build a successful training team around yourself, and you being at such a high level in arm wrestling, such high levels of strength, still you were able to do that. It means any beginning arm wrestler can do that very easily, because people like me can probably find arm wrestlers or create new arm wrestlers, new interest in people who want to join arm wrestling. Maybe I can find few guys within a mile radius of me who can give me a good challenge for practice. So what is your advice? Like, how do you convince people to come at your practices if they're kind of doubtful whether I should come or not? Like, how do you build a team to practice with?
You have to treat the newcomers gently. You can't completely just crush their hopes, and yeah, because newcomers that come into the sport can definitely be embarrassed to the point where they just think, well, obviously this isn't for me. I've let these seasoned little guys just tear me up. So you have to treat them carefully and gently, not to mess with their ego too much to make them leave the sport. But yeah, developing a good support team has always been, in my mind, the most important factor in progressing. My old buddy Kevin Bongard used to say that I used to um, treat all these people that would come to practice as pawns, for my benefit, which was completely true. The more people that I could get to show up to practice, and the stronger they got, and the better, the better I would get. So I think that's the key for any sport. If you want to become good at it, you got to surround yourself with excellence. You got to surround yourself with people that are as good or better than you. but yeah, no, that's always been my key to becoming a good arm wrestler, is having great arm wrestlers around me to hone my skills, and then dedicate a lot of time to just going to live tournaments.
And before I get to my next question, I would like to let you know about one thing that I noticed about you. Everyone talks about how great of an arm wrestler you were and still are. But I've seen very few people, only Travis Bagent mention like how smart you actually are about everything in life. There are just some human being who will be skilled and talented more than 95% of the population at anything they try to do. I always watched your live streams with curiosity, like how easily you were able to figure out how to schedule these Zoom meetings with the technology. You are dabbling with the gimbal equipment, you have a VR box, you were able to figure out how to connect your mobile phone camera to your laptop screen with the app. You don't get enough credit for how strong you actually are. Everything is calculative, even about the stem cells. Like, it is going to cost me that much. If there are some big tournaments, then I'm going to consider that big money events, because there is a 50% chance whether it is going to be successful or not. Like, people do not really appreciate how smart of a human being you are.
No, and I feel just the opposite. We laugh every time I turn on the TV and watch an episode of Jeopardy. I look to my wife and say, "Are we complete idiots? Because I can't answer any of these questions." So I feel completely just the opposite. I don't feel like I'm very well in touch with a lot of the facts of the world. But yeah, no, I guess I don't know. I without speaking or saying, I have that ability to quietly just understand and analyze. I don't have that to be able to communicate back, but yeah.
And one thing, John, that everyone, most of the arm wrestlers, that when we ask them what was your motivation of getting into the sport, they either say Devon, and most of them say John Brzenk. And one thing that it is my assumption that you never really tried to inspire anyone. You just aimed for perfection. You wanted to win the matches. You wanted to win the prize, and you also wanted to win in as many ways as you can. If that guy is strong in a hook, I'll beat him in a hook. You aimed for perfection. You never really tried to inspire everyone. Am I correct with
Right.
this assumption?
Yeah. That would be correct. I tried to, I didn't make arm wrestling my complete life. I mean, I didn't embrace it and make it my whole life. I did enough and tried to be good at it, and then when I was done, be done with it and walk away, and then do other personal things in my life away from the sport. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's just in my personality to be kind of to shy away from that
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
social connection. So
Yeah, because 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I can't imagine John Brzenk thinking like, let me do this collaboration with this famous bodybuilder, this famous athlete,
oh,
and it will be good.
oh,
Are you willing to do that on your weekends if somebody's?
I would force myself to try to do it, but I told Devin, like I said, these guys, like he's been collaborating with like Lex Friedman. I've been watching him since I've kind of been watching, Joe Rogan or know about Joe. And that would have so intimidated me so much that I would have not been able to even speak too many words. I'd be so
No,
intimidated
no.
by that man.
If
So
I
yeah, collaboration would be very difficult for me.
if I can
Especially
ask you, John, if I can feel comfortable asking you. Of course, I was also very nervous about for 5 minutes during this interview. But if I can ask you questions, I think you can do well at any stage, any channel in this world, no matter how big it is.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So my next question is about North American arm wrestling. This is one observation that I've made. I've heard, I've not seen that, but I've heard it from the arm wrestlers that the entire arm wrestling world used to look up to North America probably 3 decades ago. You guys were the dominating pack. And what happened? Why did it change? Why did the dominance shift from North America to Europe?
Well, I just don't think it was ever introduced to Europe until, I mean, I always say that it was because of the movie Over the Top, but, arm wrestling as obviously arm wrestling existed, but not organized arm wrestling, everywhere. But the United States was the first to do Petaluma and the AAA, and somebody decided to run organized competitions. I don't know why anybody else didn't really think about that, but then when it became on the big screen in the 80s from Over the Top, I think the world just kind of opened their eyes, like, what's this? What's so exciting, and because of the big Hollywood production, people to look into the sport and to be promoters and to generate that interest. And it didn't take long. I mean, I think I went to Russia in 1990, I think was the first year, and they had no idea what really arm wrestling was about. They had a bunch of great athletes, but they didn't have the mechanics or the training, or they hadn't spent any time trying to perfect the strength that was required for the sport. But it didn't take them long. I mean, by the mid 90s, they were a force already. So, but yeah, no, I think it was just lack of creativity to be able to even have anybody think about, let's run an organized event, and we'll charge entry fees, and like they did in the United States. So
Yeah. So if let's say the arm wrestling becomes mainstream in next 3 years, and you are the mentor, the coach, the head of North American arm wrestling, and you were to give North Americans a good advice, or to teach them, what would you advise them to bring that dominance back to North America? Like, what would your advice be? Because right now I only see maybe one guy, Corey West, who can potentially do something at that top level in the super heavyweight division. So how would you address this situation if you were in charge of making North American arm wrestling great?
well, I would just say what I say right now is just get a team together, and it's going to require some more motivation other than just spending your own money and winning a plaque or a trophy. For the Americans, everybody is here is still trying to support a family and do their thing in their careers, and still there's a lot of distractions, and I just think that it's going to require a professional look of the sport to be able to say, okay, no, I can commit my whole life to the sport and do what Devon's doing, and that there is enough money in the sport where I can quit my job and go move out close to Corey West or Dave Chaffee and get with groups that are the best in our country to really sharpen everybody up and become a formidable team. I mean, without that that monetary availability, that nobody's going to say, oh, I can see you later, wife, I gotta I'm going to go to out east and quit my job, and I've got this dream to become an arm wrestler. Well, what for? How are you going to support us and yourself with arm wrestling? It's just not you're not able to do it. And not saying that Europeans can do that, but I don't know, their mindset or their is maybe a little different than it is here in the United States. But if it ends up making it where people can actually follow it as a career, then I think you're going to see the level obviously because I think obviously we've got the athletes. It's just getting
and it should be that way. If there is more money, it becomes more easy for the athletes to follow that. But I think arm wrestling fans, the involvement of fans is also not at that level where every arm wrestler feels kind of responsible to the fans. And when the money is big, I think it is more prevalent in the team games. Like for cricket, for example, cricket is huge in India. If you can play for the national team, you're a millionaire the next day, like instantly. So it is that big, and it is a team sport as well. I don't think that any arm wrestling fan has like gotten emotional or cried when their favorite arm wrestler has lost. But you can see that in cricket every time when the cricket legend Sachin Tendulkar retired, like the entire nation, like hundreds of thousands, millions of people cried that day. So that level of fan involvement, I think when arm wrestling has that level of involvement, arm wrestlers are going to go to attend these events even when there
Right.
is not enough money, because they are responsible to the entire nation.
Right. Well, and what in your view is missing? Why isn't arm wrestling in that arena? What to me, like watching baseball. I mean, to me, baseball is just so boring. But you've got 100,000 people in a stadium
Yeah.
just hot dogs and enjoying themselves. Is it because of the collective audience that draws people to an event like that? Because to me, it just doesn't seem like the sport. I mean, what's missing in arm wrestling that baseball has to offer? Is it the drama, the length of it, the kind of the long story that you can kind of get yourself emotionally involved in it, where arm wrestling doesn't have that? Arm wrestling is pretty much, pretty short and sweet and quick, and you can't really, be hanging on your edge like, oh, is he going to make a comeback, or is this, we still have the next inning to possibly he could do. I just don't know what's missing in the sport, because I just even in boxing, when there's a quick knockout, at least you got 12 rounds, and the hopes that maybe it's going to go and be a long story and a long dramatic event, which I guess maybe that's, I don't know. I don't know what's missing in the sport
Yeah. Yeah, we discussed a lot about this topic. So let's quickly jump to the next question. There is always a talk about the level of arm wrestling. Arm wrestling, some people say, and I'm one of them, that arm wrestling has gotten to a new level where arm wrestlers are stronger now. They're faster, they're better. But again, many times we see John Brzenk destroying Zoloev, 90 kg world champion. Farid Osmanli top rolling Vitaly Laletin. Then they bring us back down to reality, like back to 20 years ago. Has arm wrestling really developed, or is it just Levan Saginashvili who has transcended the level of arm wrestling? What do you think about this topic?
Levan's a special individual for sure, but not that we haven't had special individuals like Levan in the past. We had Cleve Dean back in the 70s and 80s, and so I mean, I don't know. I think it'd be foolish to think that maybe Cleve in his prime in the 70s wouldn't be able to do something crazy with Levan. So yeah, I mean, Levan's special, but I think I don't think, to me, arm wrestling is very simplistic. If you get with good, you've got the desire, and you get with other good arm wrestlers that have the same desire, your performance can be just as high in the 60s and 70s as it is today. There's no special science or anything going on differently that would say, oh no, the technology is way changed now, that all the arm wrestlers that are involved in the sport now are way better than the guys that were 30, 40, 50 years ago. So it's just, to me, that doesn't make any sense.
I think the only reason can be for the further advancement of the sport is that there are more high level athletes. And let's say if there was only one guy at the top back then, and now at a similar level we have 10 different guys in that weight class. So since they start competing against each other, and sometimes this guy wins, sometimes the other guy wins, that can force you to train more and probably increase the level a little bit.
And that makes it more exciting. It makes the sport more exciting, because you're right. I mean, back in the day, we had just the dominant guys. We had the Dave Pans, we had the Johnny Walkers that were just so dominant in their weight class that it really discouraged anybody to even get involved in the sport, because they felt like they were just so outmatched. But yeah, definitely today, now there's so many people chasing that spot, that dream, that it's definitely made it a lot more exciting as a fan, because you do now have a dozen guys, 2 dozen, 3 dozen, 4 dozen guys that could possibly win on any given day. So
yeah. And if those guys, like you were mentioning, Cleve Dean and probably Richard Lupkis as well back in the day, if they knew that, like today's arm wrestlers, that they can make a living out of arm wrestling, they will be pushing it more harder, which will increase their level, and maybe dabbling with the performance enhancement even more. Which takes me to my next question, which is steroids. You have expressed your take on it. You have said it many times that it is not going to turn you into a great arm wrestler. It has minimal effect. This is what I got from you. But what I think is missing in what you said, and I kind of disagree with it, because you did not mention the other part. When we give performance enhancement drugs to an already accomplished arm wrestler, Like, let's say if a natural guy, let's assume Ongarbayev is 100% natural arm wrestler. He's a world champion in his weight category. Now, if he dives deep into that steroids thing, then what do you think? How much gains he can make from that? Because you, of course, you have also mentioned that you were also completely natural till 40, 41 years of age, which further intensifies like the dominance that you had, the legacy you had, doing what you did while being natural, which is amazing. So you didn't mention that part where already trained arm wrestlers, when they take that route, like how good they can be.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different levels that I can't even grasp. But to me, it's not the key. I mean, even if you could only if you can gain 2% over your ability or 3%, I mean, yes, it's a silly argument to say that they don't help a little bit, but the strength gain that you get from it isn't going to make or break you as what's going to make you a great arm wrestler. You have to have that ligament and that bone structure and those tendons and the commitment, long-term commitment to have that framework to be a formidable arm wrestler. Yes, I mean, if you're willing to up PEDs and gain 10, 20, I mean, some guys have gained hundreds of pounds. I don't know how that's possible. But I think really they're not that much different than what they were. I mean, yes, we can go into the discussion that it affects them mentally and gives them confidence and does this, that, and the other, and all those things. Yes, I could say that's probably completely true, but really, when it comes right down to it, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's the thing with arm wrestling is I don't know if there's really even a science behind how to get that framework built, how to get those tendons stronger and that structure to be able to take that twisting motion, because we got a lot of great arm wrestlers that don't have a lot of meat on the bone. You don't have a lot of muscle. And I don't know if, PEDs are all about, blowing up those muscle bellies and getting a little extra water and a little bit extra strength. I don't know if that makes a whole hell of a lot of difference. And sometimes I feel like it's a negative, right? I mean, you got guys that aren't on anything that can arm wrestle over and over and over again and don't ever seem to get blown up and have great endurance, and they take a few little things to try to boost themselves up, and all of a sudden it's like being on a high dose of creatine, and they one match and they're like pillow boys and numbed up and they can't arm wrestle anymore. So I don't know what the perfect formula is. I'm not sure anybody does. Well, obviously some people think that other people have figured it out, but I don't.
Yeah, I think there is one argument which I think you also made in the past, is that if a lightweight or anyone who competes in a weight category, if he takes steroids, maybe he's a 70 kg guy, he's dominant in his class naturally, then those steroids may turn him into a 80 kg guy. He may have gained a lot of strength, but then the level becomes higher and he's still equally competitive, equally what he was in the 70 kg. But with that logic, maybe the super heavyweights can benefit a lot from that, because they do not have to cut.
If you're willing to be a super huge guy and that's what you want in your life, to be a massive guy, and you don't care about weight or quality of life away from arm wrestling, then I guess then it makes sense just to go for bro and do whatever. But I mean, for the rest of the world, I mean, the other 95% of the people that are trying to make their lives enjoyable away from arm wrestling and don't want to turn into that, then it's there's a trade-off.
And of course I do not have enough knowledge about this, because my knowledge is just coming from talking with arm wrestlers who have taken stuff and just imagining things. But if I were to make a guess, I think the reality could be somewhere between what you are mentioning, that it can give you maybe 5% gain, and what guys like RVJ are mentioning. RVJ was one day saying that if Levan didn't take anything, he would be smaller than me, which is absolutely false. So I think it can be somewhere in the middle, maybe towards what you are saying, towards that side. So next question, John. Who is Sap the Bee?
I have no idea.
He must have sent you a DM on
No,
Facebook or Instagram. No,
I
I
have
don't believe it.
I haven't been online enough lately to even I don't think I've actually even seen him. I think the last couple live videos he hasn't come on, so I don't know. I think he's disappeared or gone into hiding. I have no idea who he is. He's never spoken to me or instant messaged me or said, hey, this is who I am. So I have no idea, no clue.
Yeah. And next two questions are about over the top and pulling John. Just quickly for the fans who may not know about the story, like what was the deal with it? How did the movie guys did they talk to you that we are making this movie and you are the great arm wrestler? Like did they know much about you?
They didn't know anything about me. I was so under the radar. I mean, 21 years old, 2021, just becoming noticeable and good in the sport. No, that movie was happening with or without me being alive, and I just was at the right place, at the right time, and took advantage of a situation that just fell in my lap. I mean, I was just getting good enough, and some of the rules were that you had to be a truck driver with a whatever the class was, Class C trucker's license, or a Teamster. At that time, Teamsters were associated with being a trucker, I guess. Well, it just so happened that the airline that I was working for, Western Airlines, our mechanics union was Teamster. So I qualified for the event being a Teamster. So this was the thing happened for me, and yeah, didn't have anything to do with me.
And one question about both Over the Top and Pulling John. Were these movies like financially successful? Like I think, of course, Over the Top was. What about Pulling John?
Imagine Over the Top probably was. I don't think it didn't seem like there was a lot of high tech expense in the overhead on Over the Top. I mean, there wasn't no special effects or anything like that. So I can't imagine that movie being too expensive to have been cost to have been made. But and I don't know. I kind of heard or I thought that it probably didn't do very good in the theaters and the box office, but I think it did really well afterwards with just video sales and that. That's what I've heard. So, but I can't imagine that not making money. But Pulling John, on the other hand, I don't know exactly what the costs were for that also, and obviously that didn't make probably the amount that Over the Top did. So
Yeah.
I don't know where they're at as far as if they broke even or not.
All right. Maybe there will be a future movie as well, and you for sure are going to star in that. We would love to see that.
Well,
Then, yeah,
the Devon documentary is coming out shortly. Hopefully that somebody will pick that up and they'll be able to
yeah,
distribute that at a high level. And
yeah. And you're going to be in it as well.
I got a short spot at the end. I think maybe they got me
Yeah.
pulling my motorcycle out of my garage.
Right. And you just talked about motorcycle. For many people, your arm wrestling career has been an inspiration. But when you first made a video about your house, like I always imagine like one day I'll be having a house which is far away from like the crowded area, like just like your house. I love to swim as well. Then I saw a swimming pool in your house. I love motorcycles. Then I saw a collection of motorcycles in your house. For me, John Brzenk is more than arm wrestling. John is a motivation just about lifestyle. Like I'd love like what my dream lifestyle is. You're almost already living that or has lived that for past 20 years maybe.
Yeah, well, thank you. I tried to have the things that put a smile on my face. I mean, I love snowmobiling. I love motorcycling. I mean, the boating, I love boating and swimming. So yeah, I try to surround myself with things that make me happy. The problem is, as I'm getting older, I'm starting to run out of creative ideas. Like, okay, been there, done that. That's fun, yeah, but I'm getting tired of that. I want something else. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because lately I've been doing the e-bikes. So I've got a mountain bike, which I never thought I would ever enjoy. Pedaling a bike through the desert, but with the invention of the little motorized electric bikes now that they have, it's been just crazy fun. And I've actually gotten in, people laugh and say, oh, how can you get in shape on an electric bike? Well, let me tell you, you can still get a really good workout on an electric bike. You're just going a lot faster, a lot further. but you spend 3-4 hours on a bike like that in the backcountry, and you get a quite the workout. So I feel like my cardio is going to be way better this next East versus West, because I'm probably in the better shape than I've been in a long time as far as the cardio aspect.
Yeah. And guys, we are going to talk about John's match against Oleg Patrenko on November 19th at East versus West 5. The link to the pay-per-view is in the description if you are in a hurry. But before that, John, the GOAT discussion. Like you mentioned a few times that you do not really like being called the GOAT. You do not really like that term. But my question is not about that. My question is, what exactly is the criteria for being the GOAT? Because right now the only accepted criteria is the longevity, the period of domination, which I think is going to be unmatchable in the future. I don't think it is really possible for a 18-year-old guy like what you were doing to do now. I don't think an 18-year-old John in today's world, like, do you think you could match with Levan Saginashvili? You could get to the top while you were 18?
Yeah, because like you said earlier, the level of competition there, the involvement in arm wrestling is tenfold now what it was when I grew up. So going to a tournament, I could dominate the country because there was only a handful of people in different parts of the country. Now there's hundreds of people, thousands of people. So yeah, it's a
maybe winning a
completely different playing field now.
Yeah, maybe winning a super match could be still somewhat equally easy, but winning a tournament in today's world is going to be very difficult. And this is why, not that I don't want you to be the GOAT forever, but if this is the only criteria, then I don't think even from 100 years from now, we are going to have a new GOAT in arm wrestling. Because I think we need to add more criteria than that, like who has never lost a single match. Like that needs to be taken into consideration, who was more dominant. Because if we just talk about, let's say, when someone dominates arm wrestling for 40 years like John Brzenk, then he'll be called the GOAT. It will not be.
I haven't been getting any goat checks in the mail, so I'm definitely willing to relinquish that label. If somebody wants the label, please take it off my hands.
Yeah. And now let's talk about some of your popular opponents. First of all, Alexy Voevoda. When did you face him for the first time, and what was your record against him? I think you met him only one time.
Only one time. It was, I guessing on the year. I know it was during the Pulling John crew, and I'm guessing 2003, 4, 2, 3, 4. Really wasn't arm wrestling a whole hell of a lot when I actually faced him. I weighed 95 kilos. That was the time that I was actually contemplating quitting just because of the elbow issues. But yeah, no, super strong guy, super talented. In my mind had all the things that are required to be a great arm wrestler. Big, strong forearms, big bones, super fast, wide, strong hands, big, just, everything that you would want to have in an arm wrestler, Alexy Voevoda had. Yeah, he was actually just too good of an athlete to stay in the sport. I think just because, he was Russia's Herschel Walker. He had that size and strength and speed to become the anchorman for the bobsled team, which obviously anybody's going to take versus where arm wrestling was at that time. So don't fault him for leaving the sport and doing that. But yeah, he could have been definitely something special. But
yeah,
he had to deal with the same things that some of the great athletes have to deal with. I think he also ended up overdoing it a little bit at one point and ended up messing up a tendon on his elbow or something. So he had some distractions too. He wasn't immune to the injuries.
Yeah. And you were mentioning about him leaving the sport. We cannot really blame him for that. And when some haters talk about Levan, they are always saying that, well, Levan is not going to be on the top forever. We saw what happened with Denis Cyplenkov. And I was like, Levan, I also don't think that Levan is going to be at the top forever. But for me, it is a different reason, because Levan is already getting these movie offers. He is getting invites for competing in Dancing with the Stars and bunch of different opportunities.
Yeah. Holy God. He can do Dancing with the Stars.
But I
Yeah,
think
no,
he's going to leave arm wrestling just for
there's
that.
going to be, yeah, for some people, arm wrestling maybe is just a stepping stone to move forward in life and have opportunities to do, something a little more, different and fun. So, I mean, yeah, you can't fault people for doing that. So yeah, I'm, excited for him if that's what he's, and I understand it. I mean, he's accomplished everything that he's wanted to accomplish, and he's kind of cemented himself as being the greatest, and this untouchable monster. And at some point you kind of get bored with that, right? What else does he do? Does he challenge himself by seeing if he can drop weight and get under 200 pounds and still be able to do it? I mean, you come up with creative ideas like that as an athlete, and if you can't do that or won't do that, then you start to think, well, maybe enough's enough. I'm gonna maybe pursue something else in my life.
Yeah. And there are not many matches for him because in today's pay-per-view world, you cannot just set up a match for Levan with anyone because people are going to complain like, what is this guy even doing against Levan Saginashvili? It is going to be sick. So in this pay-per-view world, you also need to think about close matches. And this is why we are not going to see him compete more than once a year, probably, even if he wants to.
Yeah, no, there's a problem with being too good, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sometimes it's not as lucrative as being competitive.
And coming back to the Voevoda topic, there were many comments from experienced elite arm wrestlers that you were probably at your weakest when you faced Voevoda. I think it was in 2003 or 2004. So, did you measure your strength after that match? Did you have any super match or tournament after that or before that to just to kind of have a check as to where your strength was at that time?
Mm, oh, yeah. No, I have a hard time remembering that far back, but 2002, 2003, yeah. Um, yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know the
All
answer
right,
to that.
fair enough.
I
Eh,
wasn't.
Yeah. So I got a comment from someone. He was trying to ask about the 2007 after pull that you had with Vovoda. I never heard about it. Is that
No,
true?
it wasn't after pull. Actually, we set up uh, that setup before our matches, and it was just for pictures. We didn't actually pull. It was just for show, for pictures.
All right. So the next two questions are about your favorite match and your most difficult match.
Boy, both of those are tough. Favorite match? I don't know. I don't have really any favorite matches. um, I keep always run back to my match with Cyplenkov.
Denis.
Just
Yeah.
I remember that I got very hyped up and revved up by Neil Pickup. I felt mentally that I had no chance. I was a light guy that just felt like I was not, going to get crushed. And he really motivated me and gave me the old pep talk and speech. And I just remember that whole experience was very just electric. I mean, between the talk backstage and getting up there and having it turn out the way it turned out and being victorious and having the crowd kind of go crazy. There was a ton of support for him. That's always kind of most memorable as far as stimulating for me to think, oh, that was just like a super exciting event. What was the other question?
The toughest match you had.
The toughest ones are the ones that I'm twisting and contorting and probably borderline in the match and thinking about hurting myself to win the match. And what comes to mind when I think about that particular match would be my match with Jerry Kydargali and the UAL. Is so close in such contorted positions and the pressures that he would put on and me trying to twist through that shoulder roll. So that was probably one of my tougher matches, longer lasting. I typically don't get into long matches, especially early in my career. My matches were pretty decisive. If I didn't beat you within a second and basically take everything away off the go, I was normally going to get beat. But yeah, there are a few matches like Jerry that stand out that I had to have a little bit of heart and but that's not my makeup normally, so that's a painful those are the hard ones.
Yeah. And next question is a bit of a controversial one. I noticed one thing about you till about 2021, I would say. I may be slightly off on this one, but I think I'm sure I'm not completely off this one. Did you used to hate Devon Larratt for some reason? Because if you ask me any question like give me one example, why do you think like that? I would be black because I've not done enough preparation. But whenever you used to talk about Devon, like I kind of got that vibe, the similar Travis Bajett, like he says that in a funny way, like I don't like that guy. Was there any similar thing with you as well?
I always looked up to, I always thought Devon was great. I mean, I never even disliked, let alone hated the guy. I always respected him, and I thought he was great for the sport. Like I think about Travis. They're larger than life characters, very outgoing. I mean, how can you not like those type of people for the sport of arm wrestling, to progress the sport of arm wrestling? I mean, they're the megaphone, they're the voice of the sport.
Then could it just be the under the table king's move?
He didn't develop that King's move until just recently. So that becomes a little, frustrating when you see people, getting stuck in some really unusual positions. But I mean, kudos for him to be that involved in the sport, to figure out, crazy ways to win like that. So.
Yeah, Devon is also a legend. Let's talk about more of your opponents. Zurab Tavberidze. There was one very funny moment in that match when I every time I watch it, I just couldn't stop but laugh at that moment. You were saying yes, his arm is short, but it isn't that short. If the elbow pad is here, he cannot pin me right besides the elbow pad. Like it is not possible without him elbow fouling. So can you explain quickly what happened in that match? Why were you mad at the referees?
And I don't remember, I think we were out of the straps, and he ended up dumping his wrist, and I kind of took his wrist, but it was somewhat in the center of the table when I took it. And when somebody normally dumps a wrist like that, or really trying to get away, my just natural reaction is to push
them down.
it's not worthwhile going outside anymore. I need to drive into their hand and drive directly straight into their palm. And when I did that, it is his hand and arm went right down to, in my mind anyway, to the center of the table. And of course he blocked and said something, "Oh, that's a pin, that's a pin." And, and the referees are looking at each other like, "Well, I don't know, is that the pin or is it not a pin?" Well, I guess, oh, that's a pin. Well, to me, it was hilarious. It's like, that's not even close. I mean, it was discussed actually before the tournament that a pin had to be somewhat on
winning side,
or not through the center of the table. And to me, it was crazy. Well, then one of the referees, I think, said that, "Oh, well, that's illegal, that you pushed him off the table." Okay, well, give me a foul then if that's illegal, that I drove his elbow off the back of the pad. Now you're contradicting what you just said, that was a pin, so.
I rewatched that match.
I was upset enough where I was like, screw this arm wrestling, I'm out of here. Then I calmed down, like, okay, well, it's just one match. I can, And I wanted to do it again, and then he ended up actually pinning me the third match doing it. I'm like, God, and okay, well, that looks bad now, because now I ended up really getting, kind of beat across the table trying to hang on to this guy. So, but yeah.
In that first round, I rewatched it in slow motion, and I think you were absolutely correct. So if this was the elbow pad, just slightly to that left side, it wasn't in front. Like you got the pin here, you were chasing him down, and your hand was like right besides the elbow pad, and it is you were completely correct. He cannot pin you there. Like if his arm was that short, maybe then he can pin you there. Otherwise, it wasn't possible.
Review TV, camera angles, because cameras are all kinds of at weird angles and things are definitely out of perspective. But I just know in my mind that that definitely was not what I would consider any referee. If I ever became a referee, I would never consider that a pin. But
Yeah.
my mistake for doing that. It was very similar to my match with Devon. When Devon tried to slip in Vegas, I ended up basically just switching to a
Right.
drive under the pad, which in WL they call a win. I mean, his arm is getting pinned as his elbow is driving off the back of the pad, try to still bail out. And in my mind, that's exactly what happened with Zurab, but they saw it differently.
Mm-hmm. So, talking about your next match with Kydargali Ongarbayev, you are, of course, someone who never makes any excuses for your loss. You didn't even mention that you were sick. We got to know that from Engin Terzi. So, from what I got to see in that match and from what I've heard from you, is that you think that you shouldn't have fought in the second round. You were on the bad side of the strap and he got a slightly better position. It would have been more wise on your part to have just laid down. But even at your experience, it sometimes it shows that it is really difficult. You get that adrenaline and you want to fight. It is really difficult to lay down. So yeah,
you don't
would you
know
want would you want that match once again, and what would you do differently this time?
No, for sure. I told Engin right away. I says, I want to redo that match for sure. That's hairline so close. We're so closely matched, and it really, in my mind, it wasn't that I wasn't as strong as him. In fact, I felt way stronger, but it's just that tipping point, a fine line of just getting the setup, getting the hitting the ready go, and so many. You analyze it afterwards. I think to myself, oh, it was this, it was that, or maybe I let down. I did so well the first match. I just was kind of being a little bit of a show off and thinking I could just, but yeah, I walked away from that thinking, okay, well I really messed that up. Because whether or not I let down or he just was able to pop me off the go to get me just a little bit out of position, and he didn't really have the power just to overwhelm me. I thought, no, I can still fight from this. And in the past, I maybe would have let that go a lot quicker because I know that I'm not the endurance puller, but I'm starting to, I guess, watch too many Devon videos where I feel like even in a bad position, I can still, I can still maybe pull this thing off and maybe a possible King's move or something. Just keep fighting. It'll be all right. But I know that's not in my, it's not in my cards to have that ability. I run out of gas quite quickly. I'm a sprinter. I always have been a sprinter, even when I'm in the best shape of my life. So I should have, looking back, I obviously should have let that go and then lived to fight another day on the third round, fourth round. But my mindset still is, tournament play. This super match thing with the a minute and a half rest is really, really hard for my abilities.
Yeah. And before we talk about East versus West, you were also supposed to pull Michael Todd in December at the Monster Factory event. Michael is injured now. Your match is cancelled. Are you looking for any replacement match?
No, I don't have anything planned now until possibly a match in February. So going up. I'm gonna have a rest, relax, do a lot of snowmobiling this winter, and decide whether I want to stay heavy or maybe even try to cut a little bit more weight and chase after I guess I don't have to really cut too much more weight to pull Ongarbayev again. We'll see how I do against Patrenko. I mean, if I get smashed by Patrenko, then I'll be actually thinking about, do I want to become a promoter now? Because I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I don't know if I can get any much better than I am right now, and that will probably, have a lot to do with how I decide to continue on.
Yeah. And guys, East versus West 5, once again, the event is on November 19th, and John Brzenk is going to be pulling Oleg Patrenko. What do you think about this match? Guys, pay-per-view link is once again in the description. Like, have you done any study about your opponent? What are his best wins? Where is your best chance of beating him?
I haven't really spent a lot of time analyzing or looking at a lot of his matches because they're old. They're through 2, 3, 4 years old. I mean, he's looked very impressive against guys like Prudnik and Ongarbayev, and I know he's capable of maybe even being better than those guys. Who knows? I mean, he claims that he's 30% stronger than when he once lost years ago. he could be like a Denis, like I'm just a monster. His hand looks super strong. He's compact. He's got massive wrist and forearm. I've been told he's very difficult to top roll. His inside looks crazy strong. If he's able to maintain his hand and wrist against me, and get me out of position a little bit to his side, I'm going to have a very difficult time. I don't like, pulling out of a defensive position like that. Unless he is like a crazy high speed athlete that runs out of gas real quick, I can't see me outlasting him. So my hope is that I'm able to, take advantage of the hand and wrist with back pressure, possibly without the straps. And we'll see. I just hope that I'm strong enough, side pressure wise and shoulder wise, to actually make the move, to the pad, even if I get position. So a lot of questions I don't have the answer to.
Yeah.
But
I think, John, you gassing him out, it may be a possibility if you keep targeting his wrist, because yes, he said that he wasn't in peak form when he competed in the top 8 event against the Latvian Raimonds Antonovic. He beat him pretty comfortably in the first 4 rounds, but then his wrist started to fade and Raimonds was able to win the next 2 rounds. And yes, he's for sure better now, but if it was his weakness, your weakness kind of never goes away. You can slightly improve it, but it still remains your weakness. So maybe, do you think there can be a possibility for you? You just need to keep targeting that wrist.
yeah, well, that's going to be my hope, is to hopefully put enough pressure on his hand and wrist, and kind of stop that side pressure hit, to blow that big arm up. I mean, I know he's been hitting the gym, and some of the videos and stuff that I've seen of him, he's big, but I know some of those big muscles, they get a lot of blood in them, they turn numb. So that's going to be my hope, that somehow I can put some mileage on that arm and it turns to mush, but we'll see.
Yeah. And next match is Ermes Gasparini versus Dave Chaffee. News for some of the viewers is that Ermes was supposed to pull Jerry, and possibly the winner of this match was supposed to pull Levan in February at King of the Table, where John Brzenk is also competing. We are going to talk about that match in a few minutes. So now Ermes versus Dave Chaffee. Who do you think is going to win this match and why?
Well, I think Ermes has the best posting back pressure top roll in the sport right now. I truly believe that Dave Chaffee is the strongest, possibly even as strong, if not stronger than Levan as far as arm strength goes, side pressure goes. If Dave can get a little traction, get a hold, maintain his wrist, get a hold of you, he's got the strength to beat anybody on the planet. I mean, I truly believe he's the strongest upper arm arm wrestler we have currently. Whether or not Ermes can have enough back pressure to stop that side pressure, we have to wait and see. I mean, the last time Travis pulled Dave in really good shape, that move worked very well against Dave. So I have no reason to believe that Ermes couldn't pull the same thing off that Travis was able to pull off against Dave at the WAL. If Dave gets any kind of hold of Ermes at all, whether it's strap or no strap, Ermes better be prepared for a lot of side pressure. It's gonna hurt Ermes' upper arm to try to stop that side pressure, because Dave comes with a truckload.
Yeah, I'd like to know your thoughts about one comment that the arm wrestling community, they have been making this comment for after the Vitaly Laletin match, that Dave now has a press. If he cannot finish, he can now transition to a press. Do you think that press can work equally efficiently on Hermes as it did on Vitaly? Because Vitaly, once he had a longer, kind of long, lanky arm. Hermes is more short, more compact. Hermes has never lost in this position. So it is clear if Hermes goes like this, he's going to lose that match. What if he's in the losing position like this, in a fully pronated move?
Yeah, no, it'll be a lot tougher to shoulder roll press Ermes than it was to do it to Vitaly, for sure, because of his shorter arm. Ermes should be able to bring his elbow forward and almost block it with a straight up and down move. So I don't think the press is even going to be an option for Dave. He's not going to need it though. I mean, if he's able to maintain his hand and wrist in the slightest, and I believe he's going to have to use the strap to be able to get a hold of Ermes. I think Ermes' back pressure will be too much without the strap. That he's not going to need the shoulder roll. I think he's strong enough to probably put Ermes out of position and beat him. But yeah, no. So I don't think having the shoulder roll is going to play a role in this particular matchup.
Yeah. If you were to give any score, a prediction.
I don't know. Maybe this will be a match that I don't know. It's hard to say. Like I said, I think well, if we look at Dave's track record, he wins the first two pretty convincingly, and then possibly gets pumped up and gets slowed down. Maybe this will be a complete opposite. Maybe we'll see Ermes being the stronger, faster, more explosive guy round 1 and 2, and Dave, slows him down second, third, fourth round. Who knows? These guys are super, super close, opposite styles. We'll see who holds up. I mean, yeah, like I said, the back pressure has to be tremendous, which Ermes possesses. So we'll see.
Yeah. Quickly, your thoughts about this main event, Evgeny Prudnik versus Devon Larratt. Who is winning here and why?
Well, I pulled with Devon, just relaxed, practice pull 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Just grabbing his hand before we even got anywhere near the arm wrestling table. All right, that's right now. He's because of all his preparation for Levan. Hand is thick and gritty and thick, and I mean, you can just tell when you just hand to hand, even without anything being flexed, that you're hooked up to something special or different. Devon is in my mind, in my opinion, I didn't pull him before weeks leading up to Levan, but he is by far stronger than he's ever been. That being said, Evgeny Prudnik has one of the strongest hand and wrists to be able to shut down that pronation, and I've seen Evgeny cup people that I didn't think were cuppable pretty easily. Will he be able to completely control Devon's pronation enough where it gets wrist to wrist and then overwhelm him with side pressure? That's a good possibility. I don't have much experience seeing, or feeling. Well, I've got zero experience feeling what Evgeny has as far as hook and side pressure. I just know what I've seen in the past, pulling greats like Ongarbayev, that he possesses a tremendous amount of downward hooking ability.
Yeah.
Keys for Prudnik, if I was to advise him, I would say don't get caught up in the setup. Give away a little bit if you have to. Conserve your energy. Don't play into the get your arm pumped up game. Try to get a match off as quickly as you can without going to the strap. It makes a difference. No strap with Devon. Devon is going to be able to apply a lot more pressure when he's in the strap than when he's out of the strap. A lot of things that I just don't know how explosive Evgeny can be. If he's explosive enough to really turn Devon's hand upwards where he can't get that perch with the pronation and the king's move, I think he's got chances to win. But if it stops, and boy, Devon, like I said, way stronger than me, stronger than I've ever felt him before. If Prudnik wins, it'll be a shock to me, because I put Devon as the clear favorite. Yeah, and from what I felt, he should be able to handle whoever.
Yeah, and those who have seen that practice poll between them, they are clearly saying that Devon is going to just destroy Evgeny Prudnik, because I've heard that Devon looked really dominant in that practice poll, despite pulling for hours and hours every day for almost more than a
But
week.
yeah, but kind of let's analyze that. They practice pulls, so they're not really doing a ready go.
Yeah,
He's not explosively hitting
speed.
for position. They set up. Devon put the strap on. Bad side. It was a slow, steady back pressure.
Yeah,
Evgeny can normally do this if
yeah.
he wants to, with pretty much anybody. Well, how is if he does this and then rolls and shut down that king's move and then open the hand? Um, it could be a completely different
Yeah.
outcome. But
I think we need to look at Evgeny's matches against Artem Morozov. Morozov was trying to top roll him and he just put him in a hook without the straps. He didn't even need the straps. Just with finger containment, he brought him back and just pinned him. And same thing with Todd Hutchings. He let Todd get into the straps and just blew through him to a point where when Todd was losing, he kind of had to go with his arm in an attempt to not to get hurt. It was that fast.
so how much? Yeah. So the mindset of Evgeny, how is he going to approach Devon? Is he going to approach him with a little fear and be careful and worry that he's going to get stopped, or is he going to be just unleashed and aggressive?
From what I have heard from some personal conversations that people have had with Prudnik, like Engin was mentioning that he was kind of hesitant taking the Michael Todd match because of that King's move. So maybe he already knows that it is his King's move, it is his weakness. So if he was not confident taking up a match against Michael Todd, I think Devon is an advanced version of that right now. So
That's
I think I think
he's got,
he is going to be nervous.
got to be mentally ready and confident. If he's not, he's already lost. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
All right. So let's talk about your a possible future match. Of course, I think it is almost confirmed, but you I think you cannot officially announce it yet. Let's assume you're going to face Denis Cyplenkov in February next year at King of the Table 6. Like, how do you see that match going? Like, do you have more chances of winning now? Like, are you in a better shape compared to your prime, or is Denis in a better shape compared to his prime?
Well, I think we're both not the same person we used to be. I think he's probably closer to his previous prime than I am closer to mine. Yeah, I'm not going to be super confident. I'm not going to tell you, oh yeah, I'm gonna take it to him. I'm going to do the same thing I did to him in Vegas because it's just it's not going to come across very. No one's going to believe it, right? Do I think I can hang with him and make him worry and be a little concerned? Yes, I think he maybe underestimates me a little bit. That I'm probably a little bit better than he thinks that I am, but then again, I think he's better than he's letting on.
Yeah.
He's really strong. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm being fed to the wolf. I'm the sheep. He's the wolf. So, but I'm willing to play that game and hopefully, surprise myself and maybe surprise him a little bit. Whether or not I can actually take the victory or not, yeah, that's not
Yeah.
as important. Getting some respect and saying, okay, yeah, no, you're still there. You're close.
I think John, one thing that can be of some trouble for you in this match is that I think the last time you beat Dennis in 2009, he didn't have that King's move, and especially in that super match, now he has that, so that can be a problem. He's not interested in cupping. His hand is so thick, like he never really cups. He always arm wrestles with this flat hand, and he just pushes people sideways. So now he has embraced that outside move, knowing that he's not going to get that cup anyways. Now he's all outside.
Right. Now, for me, the key will be whether or not I possess enough. I match up pretty well, I think, with Denis. I mean, as far in the past anyway, arm strength, whether it be hook or just side pressure to side pressure with both having flat hands. My arm's short enough, and my side pressure used to be good enough that I think I could stop that. Whether I possess it or not now. I mean, the last time he beat me, when he surged like that, it was enough of a trigger in my brain to feel like, oh, let that go. I mean, I never really, it was one of those deals where I couldn't really even keep the pressure to see if I could slow it down. I don't know exactly the year that was. I think it was possibly a year of my surgery, shoulder surgery, year before. But yeah, it definitely wasn't the stable side pressure that I needed make that an interesting match. But hopefully I'm as strong or strong enough to at least make that, when that happens, to have it be
Good
stop.
position.
And then we'll see whose form blows up first to really be able to manipulate the finish to that.
Yeah. And I think you were absolutely correct when you said that he's kind of downplaying himself. He's not showing like how strong he really is. Because maybe as a slight warning, I think I know the guys in Dubai and Denis, they're trying to hide a secret practice pull from you. This is all I can talk about right now. There was one secret practice pull where he looked really, really dominant. So they do not want you to see that practice pull. This is all I can say.
No, I'm not. It's not going to change my mind whether or not I say yes or no to pull him. So he can be whatever. But yeah, no, I've seen footage of him pulling guys that I know, like even just pulling with Ryan, and he's just like relaxed, super. I don't think I could do that with Ryan. So it's he's in good enough shape to be competitive. Whether or not he can beat Levan yet, probably he needs some work. But the rest of the world, he's definitely right there with him.
Yeah, John, I've already taken like almost 100 minutes from your time. We still have 4 questions remaining. We're up to 26. The question is about your, maybe top 5 is going to take a long time. If you're running short of time, maybe you can not name top 3 all-time arm wrestlers. And top 5, you have to include yourself. Let me make it more difficult. Like, I know you're a humble guy, and it is going to be difficult for you to include yourself in that list. So top 5, including yourself, all time.
Okay, so I'm not going to choose. I'll choose a couple heavyweights, but starting from the early career, most dominant, puller, most impressive. Learned a lot from Dave Patton, so I'll throw Dave's name in the top 5 of all time. Then a few years later, chasing Johnny Walker, super dominant, super arm wrestler. Continuing on through probably, I don't know. Yeah, Denis is it was such a big factor a few years later. I can't mention Denis without mentioning Andrei Pushkar, super impressive. And now come to the state, I'm going to say Devon. So those are my top: Dave Patton, Johnny Walker, Denis Cyplenkov, Andrei Pushkar, Devon Larratt.
And John Brzenk at top.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so top 5 super heavyweight on the right arm right now. Who do you think are those top 4 guys? Number 1 is Levan, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, what do you think can be at those spots?
I'm even with Dave's losses. I put Dave like 2 or 3. I mean, I just think with strength wise, for me personally, he's. I mean, there's other guys that I think I would have a chance against, and I don't feel like I would have a chance. He would shut me down so convincingly. So I'm going to put him super high up. Some of these other guys, like the guys that beat, my old friend Farad Usmanov. I mean, he's looking very impressive, and he continues on that trajectory. He's going to be right back up on the top of the heap, right? I don't know.
Yeah, Farid is really confident. Engin asked him, do you think you can be top 5 right now? Or maybe it was a super chat, and he said like he thinks he's already top 5 in the world right now.
Maybe, yeah. Well, that's great to see that he's back in as a force. But yeah, some of these other guys, I don't know. Like was Sylvia, he was in, he was out, he was here, he was not. So I don't know where he is at. Patelli, yes, he's still right there in the mix, right? I mean, he gave Dave everything he could handle, so he's right there with him. Devon, I just don't think anybody. Devon's going to match up against anybody right now. But he's going to have problems with probably the speedsters, like Ermes. Ermes is probably a good match, a tough match for Devon, but there's so many of them now that it's hard to.
So can Ermes be the final, like in no particular order? You mentioned, I think, Dave, Chaffee, Farid, Devon, and who's the 4th guy?
Uh, Ermes, Dave, Vitali, Chaffee, yeah, Devon.
Devon, yeah.
Um,
I
you
think,
know, everybody overlooks Jerry. Jerry should be mentioned. He's in the mix, but Jerry's got such a unusual, I just feel that he can gut it out if his mindset's right and he really wants to make it difficult and can gut it out. He can be right there in the mix too, obviously. But
yeah. And Jerry becomes really good because almost everyone in the top 10, top 15, almost everyone is a top roller, and Jerry does well against those top rollers. And this wasn't a part of my question, but do you think there is something, like exactly will be the reason why there is so much dominance with the top rollers? My assumption from my limited knowledge would be, like, once you get to that super heavyweight top level, like the hand size, the wrist size, it becomes so much, but the finger size isn't that much. Fingers, there can be a limited strength that your fingers can have, where you can just cup the guys who have 10-inch thick wrists, who have a ton of back pressure. Like, it almost becomes impossible for your fingers. Even if you get from, let's say, 100 to 150 kg, your wrist size is also going to increase, your hand is also going to thicken up. But are your fingers really getting that strong that you can still cup the 180 kg top rollers like Levan? What exactly is the reason? Why is top roll more dominant in the super heavy?
well, I think just back pressure and top rolling and taking the other person, blowing up the other first person's hand and wrist and bringing their arm outside their shoulder a little bit is such a huge advantage that most of the time that move becomes the deciding factor of whether or not you win or lose. I mean, guys can be so close and be in such a grinder hooking that the easy option is to top roll. I mean, once you've established that top roll, then it switches from that 51%, 49 to you've got a 70% advantage to that 30%, even if you guys are similar strengths. So it seems to be, for most people, the obvious road to victory is establishing that leverage advantage by, outdoing or top rolling your opponent. And even if it's not a full on top roll, just getting that back pressure advantage, stretching that arm out enough where people just can't even apply their back pressure anymore. So
And I think there are many evidences, like your matches against Arsen Liliev or Taras Ivakin, or lately Vitali has been competing. These guys are like so efficient with their top roll, with their back pressure, that it is almost impossible to hook them. You have to out top roll them. Like Arsen Liliev cannot be really hooked. You have to maybe hold and then gain some position, but you just simply cannot hook them at the beginning. So I think this is why it is getting more dominant. And now my second last question, John. I really like to ask this question for all arm wrestlers, and I think that they may not be able to answer it, but then they always come up with the answer of this question within a few seconds. What pisses you off about arm wrestling? What is it that you do not like about arm wrestling, arm wrestlers, arm wrestling fan, anything related to arm wrestling?
what pisses me off? Nothing pisses me off about arm wrestling.
Bad referee calls, maybe?
Pretty easy going, man. I don't even mind I'm okay with even the trolling and the trash talking that, when I get on the internet and see some comments that people make and people that are really established in the sport, critiquing like they're the grandmasters. I take the position that I almost laugh at it. I just get a chuckle out of it. So nothing really ever pisses me off. I try to just understand it and maybe put myself in their shoes and think, okay, well, there is, everything that they're doing is, it's wrong, but it's still helpful in a roundabout way. So very, very few things upset me with the sport. I mean, occasional bad calls, I guess. The referees are the ones that get me upset me probably more than anything, when they have a bias and I feel like, oh, that doesn't, I'm being as fair as I could possibly be, and you're still, acting like I'm being a cheater. That kind of gets me sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
okay. But other than that, no, nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I would change. I mean, it's
Yeah, like the Zoloev match where you were like this and the referee was like wrist, John, wrist.
that frustrates me when you set up, you come to the table and you're square shoulder, and the referees still feel like they need to, like it's programmed in their mind.
Yeah.
Oh, shoulder. Wait a minute. If I came up to the table like this, the wrong shoulder, you would probably still say shoulder. I mean, but I laugh at it because I understand that they're just going through the motions and they're programmed and they're not really even watching what's going on. They're just thinking that they're making a difference in it.
Yeah. And the final question, John, bit of a selfish question, this one. Do you watch Armwrestling Newz, my channel, and do you have any advice for me in the future to continue my career in arm wrestling?
I do occasionally watch you. I don't look for you. But
Suggestions, YouTube suggestions. Yeah.
You know, like you'll come up after I've watched an interesting Devon feed or a new pickup feed, then you'll come up and okay, and I'll just let the YouTube run on my TV. So, but yeah, I don't. Am I a subscriber to your thing? I'm not even sure I'm a subscriber.
I also don't know.
But no, I have watched some of your programs. Definitely, I've watched some of your programs.
Like from whatever you're seeing, and like any advice for me, like in arm wrestling, we are now in a phase like I can easily make a career from arm wrestling without actually even arm wrestling. Easily, full-time living. I can support my family, no problem. And arm wrestling is in that phase right now where there can be careers, a video editor, a graphics editor who's designing those posters for East versus West, and a commentator, a stage guy who is really good at the commentary or announcing. There are multiple careers in that. So in that part, do you think I'm doing okay? Like, did you like this interview?
No. You're obviously very professional. On the early stages when I would watch you, I would think to myself, who is this guy? Does he even compete in arm wrestling? Does he know anything about arm wrestling? And then it didn't frustrate me, but it was like, okay, he has, where's his credentials to even be? But then I thought to myself, well, he's doing more than anybody else. Why would I be upset that this guy's trying to promote arm wrestling? He's great for the sport. I mean, you come across very well, and so yeah, no, I think you're an asset.
Yeah, I think it is a good time, and more people who actually don't arm wrestle but still want to contribute to the sport, like buying the pay-per-views, sharing the videos, or even making videos. I think that will be a good time, because if you see any major sport, the amount of actual athletes and if we compare that to the amount of fans, it is a huge difference. And arm wrestling is expanding on that difference. Right now, maybe 5% of the 10% of the total arm wrestlers are actual arm wrestlers, and 90% are the fans. That number is going to increase even more. When the sport gets big, probably 95% are going to be only fans and 5% competitors. Like, I made a poll on my channel about a year ago. Like, have you ever actually competed in an arm wrestling match? It got like 2,000 votes, and 71% people said no, they have never been in an arm wrestling match. And I think if you run that poll right now, that number may already be 80%. So right. I think we do need to increase that number, and the more guys who think they can make a career out of it, I think it is going to grow the sport just with the volume of videos and content, sharing everything.
So it's coming across better than it has in the past. And I mean, it's becoming more exciting. I don't know if it's the angles or the footage or what they're doing, but it's the entertainment factor definitely is there then, if that's happening.
Yeah. Thank you very much, John. You are not only a legend in the sport, like the humbleness that you have always, like sometimes you are not downplaying yourself, but like talking so much better things about your opponents. Like, yeah, maybe Denis could have beaten me in 2009 as well if he got the good side in the first round. Like such a humble human being. I just asked you once for this interview, and your message was instantly like, yeah, I was not feeling confident enough, like whether I deserve to interview you or not. But then some people suggested me that there is no harm in asking, like probably John is going to say yes. And it took me a lot of courage to just message you, and you instantly said yes. Then I think like maybe I should have done this earlier. You would have said yes 6 months ago as well.
Surprised we haven't gotten together, before this time. But anytime we want to talk arm wrestling, just give me a quick text, and I'm happy to jump on. I have a more fun, easier time doing this than I do,
I think we can do it weekly on your channel. I will not invite you again and again on my channel. If you ever feel like you need someone to ask questions, this guy's in this side of the screen. I am never out of questions. I can talk with you for 4 hours more, and I'll not be out of questions. So this is what I think I can do well. Thank you very much, John. Was a pleasure.
been live, or is this recorded and
It
we're
is
gonna
just
go?
just recording. Like when I have a very clear vision when I interview legendary arm wrestlers like you, Devon, Larratt, Jerzy. I never go live. Like I do not want to be not disrespected, but distracted by the chat. I have to read out the super chats, and this is a big distraction. I just want to be in that moment when and this is a clear indication for some arm wrestlers whether I consider you in that top level or not. If I'm going live with some arm wrestler, it means I may not consider you the top level arm wrestler. But with guys
Yeah.
like you, Devon, there is no way that I'm ever going to go live.
All right. All right, Pradeep.
Thanks.
It's been
Thanks.
all right. Take care. Talk soon. Hang in there.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.